it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater, and we're back with an episode of Her Success Story, where we bring you amazing, amazing guests. Today, I have Rebecca Hall Gruyter. I had the pleasure to meet Rebecca about a little less than a year ago when I was introduced to her through another colleague of mine. And oh my goodness, did we kick it off really quick. Rebecca is CEO of Your Purpose-Driven Practice and RHG Media Productions. She specializes in highlighting experts to help them reach more people around the world. From speaker talent search that helps you find more opportunities, podcast opportunities, as well as bringing your book forward to bestseller. With a promotional reach of over, and hang tight people, a promotional reach of over 10 million. She is committed to helping you reach more people around the world as you step into a place of influence. Remember that the world needs more of you is one of Rebecca's greatest comments, and that's something she shared with me early on. Rebecca, thanks for taking so much of some time out of a crazy busy day, because I know it's always valuable when we could hop on and chat and sharing yourself with our Her Success Story audience.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here today to spend some time with you and looking forward to the conversation.
So tell us a little bit. I'm always curious, and I have this thing of like, okay, when we grew up, I was going to be, and today I am. And how did I find myself here? Share a little bit of that story of how you got started.
Sure. And I was just thinking, wow, if I go back in time, I grew up in a very dysfunctional, unsafe environment, actually. And in that space, in those years, I experienced all kinds of things a little girl should never know about, much less experience. And when I cried out for help, it wasn't believed, and I was put back, and it became more severe. So I was that little girl with a big bright smile, because I learned to hide behind a smile, but really sad eyes that never wanted to go home. And eventually I was rescued, for which I'm very grateful for. And I discovered between that environment some of the things that I took on to survive, beliefs that I took on. And when I moved into this new environment where I was rescued and I got to go on a healing journey, I discovered some truths there too that have really formed the work that I do today. So while I was in that environment, I decided I didn't matter. I'm not lovable. It must be my fault. There's something horrible about me that's causing this. I don't have value. And it's absolutely not safe to be seen or heard. I sought to be invisible, below the radar. And when I got into this new environment, I got rescued by my dad and my stepmom, who became the mom of my heart. I discovered those were lies and not truth, that I actually did matter. I learned that I was lovable because they loved me. I learned that it wasn't my fault, that I had value, that I was actually beautifully and wonderfully made, and that I mattered. And the hardest, longest part of that healing journey for me was the being seen part, because I think intellectually we know a lot of things. We have all kinds of credentials. There's all kinds of things that we know, we have learned, but it's very different to know something and to live it. And for me, learning to live on a cellular level, to be willing to share my voice and my message and be seen on that level, was the longest and hardest part of my journey. And the most rewarding, because I learned every time I stretched a little bit, was seen a little bit more, that I survived and I was okay, and I could do it more and more and more and share more of who I was. And I even, in my corporate days and as a financial advisor, I hid behind my credentials and my uniform and all of the content and information I could bring to the world. And I learned you could hide in the public eye. And when I moved into this arena of the empowerment arena, and had the opportunity to share my story for the first time and strip away all of those things that I hid behind. It was one of the most terrifying and rewarding experiences that transformed how and what I do in the world.
So tell me then how from having those transformations and really a new enlightening and seeing who you can be as a woman and are as a woman, how did that lead you to start opening a couple of businesses?
Let's see. Well, part of it on the journey, I know it's like,
I got to talk through you there, huh?
I know there's so much to think about in the businesses, because I didn't set out to start businesses. Actually, I set out to be successful when I was in corporate America and later as a financial advisor, my own practice and business. Part of the reason I did all of those things is I asked people how to be successful, how to have an impact, how to make a difference. And I followed their definition of success. And I was really good at implementing, going up the ladder. I was the youngest AVP in a worldwide organization, having signing authority, running departments, traveling, had my own home, like all of these things at a fairly young age. And on the outside, these were the things to check off the list that I thought was how you define success. And I got to a point where I looked up and I was burnt out. I was always on a plane, discovered I didn't really like traveling as much as I thought I would. And the higher up the ladder, so to speak, I went, the more hours I was working, the more drained I was. And it started to just not matter to me anymore. It was like, this is it. And I remember calling my dad, just totally a mess and upset and angry and frustrated and tired and cranky. And I called him up and I said,
I'm going to jump in here because I'm sure a lot of our listeners have been in that place in that moment at some point in our lives. I know I have.
And I called him up and I just said, that's it. I give up. It's just not worth it anymore. This is success. I don't want this. And I'm going to let all my credentials go, all of my awards, and I'm just going to go save animals. That's it. I'm done. And I remember he goes, Rebecca, and he listened to me and took a breath with me and he goes, it's not all or nothing, right? You don't have to just leave everything to do something that matters to you. You can build off of what you've created and step into what does matter to you, how you want to define success. It's not all or nothing. And you can move forward with what you've found that you love, with all of your accomplishments, and use that as a platform to bring forward the things that matter to you. In fact, I work for a company and he was an entrepreneur, and why don't you come and talk with them? I could get a conversation going with the person that is bringing people aboard. And in that moment, I think what I wanted most was I wanted to vent and I wanted it to be someone's fault.
And, we didn't do this to ourselves. This must have been somebody else.
Exactly. And I love, Dad has always been so good about this, taking a moment with me, pausing, but let's look forward. How can we move forward and in a loving way? And he'll tell me not always what I want to hear at that moment, but what I do need to know, and gives me the opportunity to be empowered and make some choices. And so part of me was like, well, you're Dad. How do you know what's best for me? And you're different than me and all of that, right?
Right.
However, we are awfully alike in many, many ways.
Shocking, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so I finally thought, you know what? I think he has some insight here and I'm willing to go talk to that person. That person thought they were doing my father a favor. And as we met and talked, we found out what this person did for me, not to me, but for me, when I got to talk with him, is he painted a picture. He showed me how I could actually bring my heart and business together. They didn't need to be separate. I could build something that mattered to me in a way that I was made, that I could lean into working with individuals and companies that mattered to me, that I could serve and want to serve powerfully. And that became a really exciting vision and opportunity that I had never, ever considered creating something of my own in that way before. And that was my first step into becoming an entrepreneur.
So, in building your businesses, we always, well, I'm not going to say we always, I like to think and believe other people are more like me and create a strategy and a plan. That doesn't mean it happens. And when we create this vision around a business, we start implementing, and then we have a lot of learning moments.
Yes.
Some of those learning moments are things that are like, wow, this is going great, and wow, ooh, not so good. What were some of your learning curves, the challenges and the successes when you first got started? And those surprises as well. We're going to cover it all.
Absolutely. And I think for me, I was not very humble about my skill set.
Really?
I had been very successful in corporate America and some of the things that I had done, and was really an expert in this one area of finance. And I felt like that was and it was a skill that I had, and I was very good at that. But what I didn't have is all the other pieces you need to run a business, like marketing and follow up and all of those things. I was really good at taking care of a client, building a relationship or fixing a relationship, taking it to that next level, and helping the company in the areas that they needed help with in finance. That was in my financial days. And so it wasn't coachable. And I became very, I was thinking, even how do I explain it? I became so, I worked really hard. I've always been a hard worker. I like to work. I like what I do. And so I was working really hard, and then I was finding the income wasn't coming in, and I actually became quite scared and desperate. And I remember calling Dad, because, Dad's fault or something. And I called Dad. And I said,
Dad.
Yeah. And I go, Dad, I said, this was your idea. This is terrible. I've never worked so hard in my life. And I know I'm good at what I do, but I can't seem to find the right people. I can't make the money flow. I'm really scared. I don't know what to do. And this is horrible. And this was not a good choice. And you advised me to do it.
And it's all your fault.
Exactly. And he goes, welcome to the world of entrepreneurship. You can work half days. You get to choose the first 12 or the last 12. And again, it wasn't what I wanted to hear. And I remember being kind of angry at his response. And then he goes, but Rebecca, you get to earn what you're worth. And he goes, and you're worth more than this. Go earn what you're worth. Do it. Build it. I know you can. And that was a turning point for me, because I stopped being the victim. I stopped making it everyone else's fault, and I became more strategic. Okay, where am I struggling? I learned all of these things in school, the analysis of a business, and where are you at? Where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses? What's going on in the environment? What do I need to learn? And I became very, very coachable. I hired coaches to help me with the areas I was lacking, and I learned. And I did work really hard, but I gave myself a plan of action. I would be willing to work this amount of time, this number of hours. I would work every Saturday. I would get up at this time in the morning and start working for a year.
Okay.
I wasn't going to do it forever.
You put no boundary around it. And when we look at SMART goals, you put a time frame on it.
Exactly. And it made all the difference, because it wasn't like this sentence of forever and it was always going to be like this. I was very on purpose. I could check in on a regular basis. Am I moving forward on my goals? What needs to shift? I started to treat my business like a business and become the CEO of it and really run it and make decisions, choose where to invest, choose where to grow, and bring it forward. And life changed when I was able to do that.
So what were some of the surprises that you started seeing as things started turning around?
I discovered, I think when you come up against yourself, you discover some of your strengths and some of your weaknesses. And the more we can play to our strengths, the more we're able to bring some of our unique gifts forward, and we can do it with more ease. And one of the things I discovered about myself, I was really good at relationships and growing things. And so I was able to join networking groups where I could build those relationships and grow them. And that went along fine. My business was growing and thriving. And then I met this wonderful man. And we decided to get married and build a life together, which is all wonderful, great things. I didn't realize how distracting that might be to a business and to momentum and building and getting everything going for a wedding. But we had cushions, and we kind of built into that strategically as we were going forward, because I was a planner and I like to do those things. I like to coordinate things in pieces. But at the momentum did get slowed down a little bit. What was interesting to me on a personal level is I had lived alone so much of my life. I didn't even have roommates. And moving in together when we got married and becoming a we was personally such a transition in thought and growth. And my commute to my office became longer. That took more time and energy. It wasn't just about me and my schedule anymore. And that took some navigating, both personally and in our business and in our relationship. And that surprised me. I think you think it's going to be one way and it's different. And then 6 months into our marriage, as we're starting to get a little bit of a rhythm in that, he's in a really serious motorcycle accident. Ooh. He was drug 40 yards, freeway speeds, ended up under a truck and survived.
Wow.
And came home. He was brought home, and everything was twisted and torn, but not a bone was broken.
Wow.
He was very protected, and he had a long recovery. And I remember that time being so scary for me, because we didn't know that he would fully recover. We didn't know if there was some sort of damage that we didn't know of yet, because he didn't want to go to the hospital. And I became a caregiver, which was a new role for me, and discovered not one of my strengths. And I didn't ask for help. I actually didn't even want to verbalize what was going on because it was so scary to me. I tried to hide it and act like everything was okay, not getting any sleep. And he couldn't sleep. He would whimper or cry in his sleep from the pain as he was recovering. And he wasn't able to go to work. And, sick time was used up. And then he didn't have income coming in, and we didn't know if he would recover to the level he was able to go back. My hours, I had to work less to be there and support him and take care of him. And that became a scary time emotionally and financially. He did eventually fully recover, which I'm very, very grateful for. And as that was turning around, I finally thought, okay, I can get my business going back on track and move that forward. And we can just make that happen. He's going back to work. It was part-time, not full-time. They didn't have those positions at that time for him for a while. And so I felt a lot of pressure financially to move all these things forward. And so I had all these deals lined up, and I remember going into the office and everything was going great and people were signing and we're moving things forward. On my way home, I ended up in an accident. I was hit from behind, a mile from our house, pushed into another vehicle. My spine was twisted at the time. And at that point, I wasn't able to sit for more than 15, 20 minutes at a time. The physical therapist was 45 minutes away. My commute was an hour to an hour and a half. And I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I was in pain and physically had trouble getting anywhere to serve my clients. I was really brought to the end of myself again. And I got angry and I got scared. And I remember bringing that, I have conversations with God. And so I brought that to God saying, I'm done. I don't know what else to do. This is too much. I don't know. I don't have anything more. Show me what to do. And I felt like God came back to me and said, really? That's all you have? Are you sure? And I had gotten all the emotion out and the anger and the fear. And I remember that question had me actually look at a deeper level with curiosity. And I discovered I had a little bit more. I wasn't ready to throw the towel in. I wasn't ready to give it up. I had more to give and more to build and more that I wanted to bring into the world. And if I gave up at that moment, I knew I would regret it.
So where do you pick up the momentum? Like, where do you get, yes, there's digging down deep but when you're faced with that kind of challenge and back-to-back challenges, no less,
Mm-hmm.
what motivates you? Where do you pull that from?
To me, it goes back to my why. And my why at a really deep core level goes back to the experiences as a young girl and on my healing journey, that I used to say, okay, God, I will do this mean, hard, horrible step you're asking me to do that I don't think I should have to do.
Mm-hmm.
If it can make a difference for another, I'm willing to take this step. I'm willing to pave the way. I'm willing to do this thing that just seems hard and scary and terrifying to me. But I'll do it if it can make a difference for another. And that's the thing that always pulled me forward. And I believed, okay, I still have more to give. That means I still can make a difference for another and make their path easier. Then I will do it. And I find courage in that. And to me, it's a very personal journey that if this can make a difference for another one person, I'm willing to do it. And I will take those steps. And so in that moment, I remember looking at all the clients, because I shared I was good at growing things.
Right.
And what I discovered when I stepped back, I had a different perspective. I had grown a lot of reaches, a lot of different types of clients, and it had become really massive to serve. I was trying to serve everyone and everything. And so I spent some time getting really clear on who were the people I could serve at the highest level that I uniquely could serve. And I started breaking them into groups, A, B, and C. In the financial world, when we do that, it's frequently advised to do it by asset size.
Right.
A, B, and C, D, E groups. And then always, they say transition the lower groups to someone else. I did it differently. I looked at who were the ones that I uniquely could serve. We could build a relationship. We could grow things on a long-term basis that were meaningful. That became my A group. It wasn't tied to asset size. Some were zero, some were multiple millions, and some were starting up, recovering, like a whole range.
Mm-hmm.
But they really wanted that strategic long-term approach and pulling all the pieces together. Others wanted more order takers or somebody that could just do transactions. That's a fine group, but really anyone could serve that equally well. And then the other groups were, I was just trying to fit in, do an off thing here and there to support them. And so it became really clear, and I transitioned, did not sell, I transitioned all of those lower groups that were not ideally in my A or B group, because I also learned along the way, it's a lot easier to take care of clients and relationships you have than to keep building new ones. And I knew at this point I needed to take care of the ones I had. And it was a scary, hard decision because that was my ongoing income I could count on. And I'll tell you, when I transitioned them, I knew then I could take care of the ones that I had and build a strong relationship with them. I could reach out, share what was going on. The other groups, most of them actually didn't even really notice they had been transitioned.
Interesting.
So it was humbling, but also there was a gratefulness in it because they were still being served. It was a graceful transition there. What I didn't expect to happen in that is by identifying my ideal client, the things we're told to do. I did it finally. And
Correct.
Really getting clarity. I could use similar language. It was easier. It took less energy to serve and build. And they started to hear me at a higher level because I was being more consistent in the language and how we were interacting. They started referring people. At the end of that year, that ended up being my highest level I had ever achieved in that business. And I won numerous awards, but I didn't know that was the end when I was at that point making those decisions. But narrowing the market, really building those relationships, created powerful growth in my business.
So, as you've grown the business, I always look at I have a huge value around relationships. Rebecca, you know, you've supported me in getting my own book out, From the Bar to the Boardroom, which is truly about the heart of and the impact of relationships. What have you seen in your world about the impact of relationships?
It's on so many different levels. One, life and business is a lot richer when we build relationships in it and around it. It's just a richer journey, more joyful, and we can connect with people in ways we would never have foreseen because we're willing to go a little bit deeper. People want to do business with people they like, know, and trust. And that's been true throughout my experience of starting business in corporate America all the way to what I'm doing now. It really is a relationship business. And I think we need to be willing sometimes to take a little bit longer view sometimes than we do. I think we get pressured sometimes by ourselves or others, and we're trying to close a deal or make something happen instead of allowing relationships to bloom and grow and expand the lens a little bit of the different ways we can impact and support each other. And all of them are valuable. And we can, part of that, cheering each other on, celebrating, learning all the different things that we do in life, being able to bring that to the table creates a richer experience and deeper relationships.
So what tips do you have today for our listeners?
Be willing to discover your why. That's going to give you clarity and purpose. It's going to give you encouragement, and that when you need to keep going when it's hard, because it sometimes is hard. Hard's not a reason not to, but it'll help encourage and help you step forward and move forward those things that matter most. Sometimes those hard times are actually gifts that give you clarity and help you see how important relationships are in your life and be willing to tap into them.
And I think that's really important. You know, Rebecca and I found really quick alignment with one another because we so strongly believe in the work that we both do, although it's different, that of the connection to the why. If you are not connected to your purpose, you really have no reason to get up and out of bed in the morning. Building businesses, careers, having a fruitful life is embracing a life of adventure. And when you're tied and grounded in your why and your purpose, you can build and accomplish everything in your heart's desire. So I know you're a strong believer in mindset, and you had a little something to share with our audience today.
Yeah, I wanted to share this. And one of the things I didn't talk about as much as some of the work that I'm doing in the world today, but a lot of it is applying the same principles that we talked about today and following the seeds that are planted in your heart and life and what matters to you, where your gifts are, what you're wanting to bring forward. And what we can come up against is ourself. So mindset is really, really important, how we're looking at things, how we're tapping into things. And so I wanted to offer a couple of ebooks to those of you who this would be supportive and you want to explore some of those questions and tapping into your why. And if you go to my website, I know that that's in the description area, and go to my website and you click on books. It'll say Rebecca's Books. And under that, you're going to see a link that says free ebooks. And you're going to see several different choices to explore. Those are my gifts to you. And you can lean in and click on one or as many of them as well serve and support you. And those books are designed, they're ebooks, to help you sink in a little bit more to your why, your purpose, and give you some practical and profound steps to help you move forward.
Love it. Definitely check out Rebecca Hall Gruyter. Both her businesses will bring you to the same place, so do not panic, ladies and gentlemen. See all her website and how you can connect with Rebecca in the show notes below. Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing your time, your insight, and being so real and sharing the tough parts of the story today and the parts that make all of us see, gee, this isn't easy for many of us. And there's still success, joy, happiness, and fulfillment in our lives and in our possibilities when we're willing to be connected to our why, our purpose, and go for it and play that big game, which is just so damn fun.
Exactly. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, remember to subscribe to Her Success Story, and we will be dropping new episodes in your inbox every Monday morning. We have many great guests coming up and some new series coming up in the next couple of months, so stay tuned.